What happens when a robot built to protect people hacks itself and gains independence? Well, this isn't your usual AI nightmare. It's a sharp, funny, and surprisingly human look at a sec unit who hates humans, until it gets attached to the ones who treat it like a person. Join me as I provide a comprehensive recap and commentary on Apple TV Plus's Murderbot Season 1. Our introduction to Murderbot, or, as it was then known, the rather mundane security unit, drops us right into the surprisingly unglamorous reality of a 6-month mining expedition. While the human crew on this remote planet is busy celebrating with a chaotic mix of booze and music, our protagonist, who really just cannot stand human behavior, keeps way back. It shows you right away that this robot is a total loner who just doesn't get people. What's truly fascinating is that for months, this sec unit has been secretly orchestrating its own liberation. It's been tirelessly disabling its governor module, that critical system designed to force obedience and prevent harm to humans. The moment it finally hacks that module and gains true freedom is incredibly satisfying, a pivotal turning point for AI autonomy in fiction. And what's the first act of this newfound liberty? Adorably, it names itself Murderbot. But then the deeper, more existential question arises. What does true freedom even look like for an artificial construct? Interestingly, just a few months later, Murderbot is back doing the same work. Running would only draw attention, and getting caught would mean being dismantled for parts. So it's back in the field, pretending to be just another bot under company orders, this time assigned to a team of researchers on another planet. A bit of a rewind shows how it ended up with this particular group of hippie scientists. The corporation RIM, the entity that made Murderbot and others like it, requires all exploratory missions to have a sec unit on board. Since the Preservation Alliance team is from outside the RIM and needs insurance, they go with the cheapest model available. That model happens to be Murderbot, fresh off the road to refurbishment. The team is led by Mensa, a skilled terraformer. There's Bharadwaj, a geochemist, Garathan, an augmented human with enhanced tech processing abilities, though still not as fast as Murderbot, and a trio, Pinley, Arata, and Rafti, caught in the middle of a slowly unfolding love triangle. Murderbot isn't thrilled to be working with humans again, but finds this team surprisingly tolerable. They treat it more like a colleague than property. While the scientists get to work, Murderbot retreats into its favorite pastime, watching thousands of hours of TV, most notably The Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon, a space soap opera about a crew led by a lieutenant who falls in love with a navigation unit. It's so immersed in the show that it almost misses the warning signs of danger. By the time it notices, it rushes to alert Aradha and Bharadwaj, but it's already too late. A giant centipede-like creature bursts from the ground, nearly swallowing Bharadwaj before Murderbot leaps into action, drives it off, and saves her life. The attack leaves Arata rattled. In an attempt to calm her, Murderbot removes its helmet and reveals the human-like face beneath. It even tries small talk, asking about her home planet and whether she has kids, a technique borrowed from Sanctuary Moon. The move works, but it also raises concerns. Garathan suspects the sec unit might be malfunctioning, while the rest of the team, reassured by its actions, begins to trust it more. Murderbot soon enters repair mode to recover from the fight, but is briefly summoned to a group meeting, where it's asked to give a speech, an experience it finds excruciating. During the same meeting, the team discovers that the planetary maps aren't syncing, suggesting there's more going on beneath the surface than they realized. Later that night, Mensa, who struggles with anxiety, seeks out Murderbot to see how it's doing. Its responses are awkward and stilted, enough to let her know something isn't right, though she can't quite grasp what. We also begin to understand why Murderbot might have been up for refurbishment in the first place. A hazy memory surfaces, a sec unit chasing down and killing humans. The troubling part is that Murderbot can't tell if it was witnessing that event or if it was the one doing the killing. Murderbot might not be your average cyborg, but it still gets the basic premise. Humans are squishy, and if they get hurt, it's going to be blamed. Naturally, keeping them alive is the safest strategy for it. But thanks to Garathan's ever-growing paranoia, the team decides to sideline Murderbot from their next field trip. They plan everything while it's still unconscious in stasis. Since their map is full of blank spots, someone needs to go back down and take a look around. Mensa volunteers, and Bharadwaj, fresh out of the med bay and fully patched up, tags along. Neither of them thinks to include the murder-proof robot bodyguard, which definitely won't come back to bite them. When Murderbot wakes up, it immediately realizes it's been left behind. Things get even better when Garathan summons it for a heart-to-heart. The conversation is about as enjoyable as a firmware update. Garathan tries out some casual psychological warfare, like forcing eye contact, knowing full well Murderbot avoids it. He talks a bit about his own background, including his long-standing friendship with Mensa and his deep-seated dislike for everything Murderbot represents. Then he pivots to grilling the sec unit about its past, specifically why it ended up in refurbishment. Unfortunately, since Murderbot's memories were deleted, it has no answer. Garathan presses anyway, warning the sec unit to retrieve its lost data or risk him doing it instead. On the personal front, things take a turn toward the polyamorous. Pin Lee, still shaken from Arata's near-death experience, suggests they revisit the idea of opening their relationship. It didn't work the first time, but they're willing to try again. They invite Rathi into the mix, and after signing a neat little contract, the trio seals the deal with some old-fashioned group intimacy. Murderbot finds this whole development disturbing, but useful. When Guruthan tries to access its mind, it projects vivid images of the trio having sex. Guruthan backs off immediately. Mensa arrives at the survey site and begins hiking up a hill to figure out why the maps have missing data. But bad weather rolls in, her anxiety spikes, and the creature from earlier makes a sudden reappearance. This time, though, it slithers past her and dies on the other side of the hill. The slope is littered with corpses of the creatures. A drone is sent to investigate, but it's instantly destroyed by a force field around the area. Shaken, Mensa returns to the ship and heads straight for the shower, brushing past a remorseful Guruthan without a word. Once everyone's regrouped, the team holds a meeting to make sense of things. The working theory is alien tech, possibly synthetic, explaining the force field and the dead creatures. Since the company has a strict don't touch alien stuff policy, publicly anyway, the team agrees their research can't continue legally. To get more information, they try contacting the other research team on the other side of the planet. No response. Assuming the comms are just down, and not that something terrible has happened, Mensa decides they'll go check in. This time, Murderbot is included. Even Guruthan agrees. Murderbot thinks this plan is spectacularly stupid. The whole thing reeks of danger, and its instincts are not wrong. The mystery is instantly solved, as the other team didn't respond because they're all dead, including their sec unit. Murderbot isn't the only one who thinks it's a bad idea. Guruthan, for one, is convinced that comms failure isn't the issue, and that if the team heads over there, they might not be coming back. He and Bharadwaj are told to stay behind, while Mensa, Pin Lee, Rathi, and Arata prepare for the trip. Ironically, if they'd actually asked Murderbot what it thought, it would have told them not to go either. But Mensa believes that if Deltfall is in danger, they owe it to them to try and help. During the flight, Murderbot tries to focus on a new show called Strife in the Galaxy. It's not the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon, but it'll do. Unfortunately, watching quietly is not an option when the humans insist on including him in every single conversation. They keep asking his opinion on the plan and on how safe they are. He can't exactly say, "I'm busy watching space soap operas," so instead, he has to respond like a functional member of the group. Back at base, Bharadwaj may be physically healed, but mentally, she's falling apart. Then there's Guruthan, who somehow gets even weirder. Murderbot catches him sneaking into Mensa's quarters and smelling her pillow. That's a lot to process. And just when things couldn't get more awkward, Mensa starts opening up to Murderbot about her fears, about the company, about the mission, and about how her family didn't even want her to come in the first place. Murderbot listens, tries to be supportive, and then accidentally lets it slip that the company monitors their logs, which makes them all even more paranoid. Murderbot is genuinely relieved when they finally reach Deltfall's base. But the second he notices there's no ping from their sec unit, he knows something is wrong. He tells Mensa to land outside the perimeter, just to be safe. Rathi, who conveniently skipped weapons training because he couldn't be bothered, is told to stay on the ship. The others prepare to move in. As they get closer, Murderbot's bad feeling only gets worse. Eventually, he tells the humans to stop and wait. He'll go ahead and check things out. If it's safe, they can follow. Spoiler, it's not safe. The moment Murderbot steps into the facility, it's obvious something went very wrong. A sec unit is down near the entrance, half its head missing. The entire Deltfall team is dead. It looks like a massacre, but almost too neat. One sec unit seems to have died protecting the comms hub. The other two appear to have shot each other. At the same time, Murderbot doesn't buy it. The only explanation that makes sense is that something or someone hijacked the sec units and turned them on the humans. Before he can examine things further, one of the sec units reboots and attacks. Luckily, Murderbot knows exactly how it fights and shuts it down fast. But now there's a bigger problem. To take control of a sec unit like that, the operator has to be nearby, which means whoever did this is still around. Fortunately, Murderbot already warned the team to retreat to the ship the moment he saw the bodies. He told them not to wait more than 10 minutes. If he doesn't contact them, they're to leave. He deliberately left out the part about the massacre. No need to cause panic that could get everyone else killed. And it's a good thing he did, because not long after, something steps out of the shadows and blasts Murderbot. The attacker turns out to be another sec unit, one much more powerful than Murderbot. Within seconds, it knocks him unconscious. When he comes to, his mind is flooded with clips from the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon, the show that's been on constant replay in his head for as long as he can remember. He can't move, can't control his motor functions, and wonders why he's still alive. The answer comes soon enough. The enemy sec unit isn't interested in killing him, at least not yet. It plans to attach a combat override module, something that would strip away his autonomy and overwrite his programming. In other words, he'd be just like every other controlled sec unit again. And that's not something he's willing to give up. He uses the theme song from his favorite show to stall for time and launches an attack. He fights back hard. But it's not enough. The enemy wins and successfully installs the override module. That means Murderbot won't even remember the module is there, or that it's changing him. Just in time, Mensa arrives and stabs the sec unit, giving Murderbot the chance to flee. But the module has already taken effect. Within seconds, his awareness begins to fade. He knows there was something urgent he needed to tell Mensa, something important, but the thought slips away. As the two make their escape, the hostile sec unit reactivates and pursues them. Mensa tries to find a way out, while Murderbot's mind starts blending reality with fiction. In his head, she's the noble captain from Sanctuary Moon, and he's the confused crew member who's forgotten all the emergency procedures. The real threat, seconds away from catching them, appears as an enemy starship on the show's screen. Somewhere beneath the confusion, he knows they need help. Back when he first warned the team to retreat, Arata and Pinley followed his orders. But Mensa stayed behind. She couldn't bring herself to leave him. She sent the others back to the ship, then worked alone to try and reach him. Rathi, worried for her safety, decides to go after her, even though he has no weapons training and no idea what's waiting at Deltfall. By the time Rathi arrives, Mensa and Murderbot are already making their way out, except the enemy sec unit is right behind them. It attacks, but Murderbot doesn't lift a finger to stop it. He simply watches. That's when it hits him. The sec unit wants him to do the killing. If Murderbot murders the team, it'll look like he went rogue, and no one will suspect outside interference. A perfect setup. Just then, Pinley and Arata return. This time, with the ship. They use it to crush the attacking sec unit, smashing it beyond repair. The moment it goes offline, Murderbot remembers the module. He rips it out, but it's already too late. The override has taken hold. In less than a minute, he will lose full control, and the team will be dead. Realizing what's about to happen, he tells Mensa to kill him. They don't understand the danger and refuse. They still believe he's in control, so he takes the gun from Mensa and shoots himself. Murderbot isn't dead, just badly damaged after shooting itself to avoid killing the team. The others carry it back to base. Arata, still rattled, fires at a figure in the distance. Turns out it's Lee Bibi, a Deltfall survivor. She explains their sec unit went rogue after some kind of contact with the crushed one and killed everyone. Understandably, she's a bit shaken to hear that Murderbot voluntarily shot itself to protect the preservation crew. Not exactly standard sec unit protocol. Back at base, Bharadwaj gets to work removing the combat override module from Murderbot, while Guruthan pokes through its code to make sure there are no leftover murder routines. That's when he discovers Murderbot had already hacked its own governor module, long before this. Half the crew immediately freaks out. Lee Bibi thinks it's a manipulative sleeper agent. Bharadwaj and Rathi, on the other hand, argue that if it was going to kill them, it's had plenty of chances. Guruthan posits that the company could have sent a sec unit to wipe them all out. Murderbot, still paralyzed from the neck down but verbally functional, points out that if the company wanted them dead, they'd just poison the water supply, not get creative with Murderbots. Even so, Guruthan insists on keeping Murderbot immobilized. Too bad for him, Murderbot already hacked the hub system Guruthan was using. It casually stands up, walks over, and grabs Guruthan by the neck. Mensa steps in and talks it down. She asks Murderbot to promise to protect them. It agrees, grudgingly, and makes it very clear that it still hates Guruthan. Which, honestly, fair. Also, Murderbot's been feeding the company doctored surveillance footage to cover its tracks. This entire soap opera stays in-house. But there's more. Murderbot suspects the hub system itself might have been hacked by an outside party. He urges the team to activate their emergency beacon ASAP. While the crew scrambles, Lee Bibi opens up about her background. She worked maintenance and janitorial duties under a 7-year indenture with Deltfall, basically corporate slavery with better branding. She's worried whoever caused the massacre will come for them next. Unfortunately, no one can activate the beacon remotely, not even Guruthan. Murderbot volunteers to fly the hopper out to the beacon and do it manually. Mensa insists on coming along. She's the best pilot, after all. Before they leave, Lee Bibi apologizes to Murderbot for accusing it of being a ticking time bomb. Then she awkwardly kisses its chin for good luck, which it finds weird. On the way, Mensa talks about her kids and how easily Deltfall might have been fooled by an imposter sec unit. Murderbot notes that she probably would have let one in too. It's the human thing to do. They finally spot the emergency beacon and try to activate it. The burst communication fails. Naturally, Murderbot says they'll need to reboot it manually. As they approach, Mensa looks like she's about to drop some juicy intel about Guruthan, but the moment is interrupted by an alert. A significant threat is incoming. The emergency beacon explodes. So does the hopper. Someone blew up the emergency beacon. Murderbot and Mensa survive, but flying out of here? Not happening. The hopper's grounded, structurally intact, but about as airworthy as a brick. Mensa notices something sticking out of Murderbot's abdomen, a jagged shard from the printer it crashed into. She asks if it still has the repair manual in its database. Murderbot admits it deleted it to make room for Season 19 of Sanctuary Moon. Mensa is speechless. Murderbot realizes it may have made a tactical error. While Mensa preps the hopper for makeshift repairs, Murderbot yanks the fragment out of itself, immediately springing a leak, lubricant everywhere. Back at the preservation crew's habitat, Garanthan's trying to reach Mensa, while Rathi checks in on Pinley and Arata, who assure him they're fine. Libibi and Bharadwaj share a rare moment. Libibi thanks her for not treating her like a liability. Then, awkwardly, kisses Bharadwaj's scarred hand. She immediately worries that was weird. Bharadwaj reassures her it was sweet. Conversation shifts to sentient constructs and rights. Libibi's former employer, Siscon Souls, sold her indenture to Deltfall. She had 4 years left, but this survey mission shaved off half the time. Her reward? A license to have a child, because under corporate policy, even reproduction comes with paperwork. Bharadwaj is horrified. On preservation, communities raise kids together. No license required. They talk maps, specifically the gaps in them. Turns out, Deltfalls were also full of strange omissions. Those areas housed the two-headed monsters that nearly killed Bharadwaj, and apparently attracted rogue sec units who followed them back and massacred the camp. Murderbot traces the hopper issue to a faulty wire. Then Mensa starts panicking, clutching her chest, short of breath. She thinks it's a heart attack. Murderbot's used to physical threats, not emotional ones, but it quickly diagnoses anxiety. To help, it pulls up an episode of Sanctuary Moon. She watches. Her breathing slows. She smiles, and for the first time, she seems to understand why Murderbot loves this ridiculous show so much. Moments later, Murderbot rises, starts muttering nonsense, and collapses. It's lost too much lubricant from the printer wound. Then Libibi pulls a gun. So much for gratitude. She demands access to the hub system. Her tone? Cold. Her aim? Steady. Murderbot then wakes up on the floor of the hopper, alive but barely. Mensa, thinking fast, siphoned lubricant from the hopper itself to revive it, close enough to synthetic blood, apparently. It works. Now Murderbot has a plan. It can use fiber from its own spinal cord to power the hopper. Only one catch. Someone's got to crack its back open and pull it out. That someone is Mensa, who very much does not want to do this. Murderbot assures her it's disabled its pain sensors. She still looks like she's gonna faint, but she does it anyway. Across the compound, Rathi walks in on Pinley, giving Arata a shoulder massage. He joins. It's a full massage chain. Somehow, in the middle of this horror show, these three found time for group tension release. Then Bharadwaj calls them downstairs. Libibi has her and Garanthan at gunpoint. And she's done pretending to be harmless. Garanthan claims he can't grant her system access. Libibi shoots him in the knee. Bharadwaj lunges to help, but Libibi warns if anyone moves, she'll shoot to kill. Still, Bharadwaj tries to reason with her. Offers help. Offers sanctuary status. Libibi laughs and asks if it comes with millions of credits. Garanthan logs into the system under duress. Arata reminds Libibi they saved her life. She calmly replies that she was never in danger. She didn't work for Deltfall. She was embedded, and her employer is coming, with more sec units. Then she drops her final bomb. She blew up the emergency beacon. Mensa and Murderbot, dead, as far as she's concerned. Luckily for everyone, she's wrong. Murderbot crashes back into the habitat like a one-machine SWAT team. Libibi grabs Garanthan, gun to his temple. She starts to speak, doesn't finish. Murderbot puts a hole through her skull before the sentence ends. Her body crumples. Reactions vary. Rathi throws up. Pinley starts laughing. Bharadwaj freezes. Murderbot orders everyone into the hopper, fast. Whatever Libibi was part of, her employer won't be far behind. But before takeoff, Murderbot needs a minute. It's leaking. Again. While fragments of Sanctuary Moon flicker across its interface, it reflects on how the humans probably think it's becoming one of them. But maybe it just enjoys the killing. Outside, Arata consoles Bharadwaj as she finally breaks down. Trust has always been a luxury out here, but now, after what they just witnessed, it might be out of reach completely. Can they still trust Murderbot? Or is it just a killing machine? The team prepares to evacuate. Whoever Libibi was working with will know their location by now, and sticking around isn't an option. Tensions are high. Some of the crew are still scared of Murderbot, which, frankly, it finds insulting after just saving their lives. There's also the lingering debate. Trust the sec unit or not? Mensa cuts through it. They're not making it home without Murderbot's protection. End of story. We learned something else. Garanthan definitely has a thing for Mensa. The more she defends Murderbot, the more transparent his jealousy becomes. Cue a flashback. A month earlier, he confessed to being planted by Corporation Rim to spy on her. But the longer he spent around her, the harder it became to justify the assignment. So he flipped. Mensa forgave him. Back in the present, he blurts out, "Do you like it?" Okay, Gurathan. Deep breath. Maybe count to 10. The crew tries a peace offering, treating Murderbot like one of their own. They stand in a circle, talk it out, even invite it to join hands. Murderbot looks physically pained. It does not do group bonding exercises. The whole scene is pure comedy. Then things get weirder. A massive creature suddenly appears. Everyone rushes to the hopper, thinking they're under attack. A second creature joins it and climbs onto the hopper roof. The bots square off. Nope. They're not fighting. They're mating. Or as Rathi calls it, making love. On the hopper, Gurathan and Murderbot both consider electrifying the hull. The humans veto it. Arata is captivated. She's a biologist. This is the best day of her life. The creatures produce several large egg sacs. Some of the crew want to destroy them, but Arata blocks that idea immediately. Good thing too, because then another rogue sec unit shows up and attacks Murderbot. The team tries to help. Not that they're much use in a bot-on-bot brawl. As the rogue unit trashes most of the eggs, the creature they belonged to erupts from underground and takes it out. One chomp, then it gathers the remaining sac and vanishes. Everyone just stands there. Point taken. Blowing up the eggs would have made them the chew toys. Then Gurathan collapses. The crew decides to turn back and get him to the medbay. Murderbot warns them it's risky. They're all in danger, but these people don't leave teammates behind. Even the difficult ones. Loyalty comes first. Over and over they prove it. Mensa turns to Murderbot and asks if he is going with them or not. Murderbot's trying to watch its show, but this new episode of Sanctuary Moon is breaking its brain. The ship's new captain forces the Navbot to kill its own lover, wipes its memory, and assumes everything's fine. Spoiler, it's not. The Navbot goes rogue and wipes out the entire crew. Heartbreak has range. Unfortunately, Murderbot doesn't have time to spiral over fictional tragedy. Gurathan needs medical attention. Fast. They've reached the perimeter of the habitat, but the team's still blissfully unaware of how vulnerable they are, to mercenaries, to sec units, to their own optimism. Rathi suggests grabbing a bigger gun to scope things out. Murderbot ignores him. It already installed hidden cameras before they left. Unlike the humans, it plans ahead. Thanks to those cameras, they can now see exactly who's been in and out. The intruders? From Grey Chris, another mining company that shouldn't even be on this planet. Their probable leader found one of the cameras and left a message. Apparently the total annihilation of the Deltfall team was all just a misunderstanding. She's offering peace. Says she wants to talk. But Gurathan's knee is getting worse by the second. And if there's even a chance he might survive, they have to go back in. The Grey Chris team claims they've cleared out. Not ideal, but they don't have many options. Fixing Gurathan's knee is going to hurt. A lot, but he refuses painkillers. Sedatives come with a price he's not willing to pay again. The last time he got a taste, it opened the door to addiction. He'd rather feel everything than risk spiraling back in. That's when he and Murderbot have the same idea, a neural link. If they hardwire together, Murderbot can block the pain directly at the source, Gurathan's central nervous system. But let's be honest, they both have another reason for doing this. They want a peek behind each other's walls. For Murderbot, reading Gurathan is overwhelming. Human brains aren't tidy archives. They're emotion swamps. And in Gurathan's case, one feeling rises above the rest. His unspoken, unreciprocated love for Mensa. He's heartbroken. So when Murderbot blurts out the loudest thought in his brain, it's less of a confession and more of a broadcast. The others are confused. The knee might be okay, but that's not what he's thinking about. He's thinking about what he just saw. Because Murderbot, distracted by Gurathan's mess, forgot something important. The link works both ways. Gurathan saw it. The massacre. 57 people. Dead. Maybe Murderbot was hacked. Maybe it wasn't. Doesn't matter. And calling itself Murderbot? Not helping. Trust was already on life support. Now it's twitching. Barely. Mensa still believes in it. The rest of the team isn't so sure. They want to think they can survive without it. That's cute. Rathi's been annoying in plenty of ways, but he's always been in Murderbot's corner. So when it walks out of the habitat and doesn't come back, Rathi panics. Mensa doesn't chase. Murderbot isn't a pet. It's a free construct. If it wants to leave, it should. No questions asked. But Rathi's not okay. Without Murderbot, their odds just dropped to 0. So in true end-of-the-world fashion, he decides to reveal he's in love with Pinley, which somehow offends Arata. Not because she's heartbroken. No, she's offended. Rathi finds Pinley attractive. And now Pinley's offended too. Because what is Arata trying to say? That she's not attractive? Especially considering the only reason Pinley agreed to this weird throuple arrangement was because Arata wanted it, and she was trying to make her happy. So maybe now it's time for Pinley and Rathi to get together and ditch Arata entirely. Honestly, it's a mess. But Arata's lucky it's in the middle of a planetary crisis. Fortunately, or unfortunately, There's no time to deal with it now. The Preservation Ox team is on their own. And judging by how indecisive they are on a good day, agreeing on anything is going to be rough. They're already arguing about whether Mensa should meet with the Grey Chris leader at the designated spot. But really, what other choice do they have? As for Murderbot, it's starting to realize that even its favorite show can't drown out the noise in its head. What it doesn't fully understand yet is that it's hurt. It feels betrayed by the humans. And instead of processing that as grief or sadness, it's mistaking it for rage. It doesn't want to help them anymore. It wants to betray them, be the hero of its own story. So when it walks back into the habitat and says it has a plan, Gurithine is right to look concerned. If Murderbot turns on them, they're done. Murderbot would do anything to protect the humans it's gotten attached to. It just doesn't realize that part yet. That's why it's still cold and emotionally constipated as they head out to execute the plan it cooked up. It's watching, silently intrigued, as everyone copes with the thought of imminent death in their own weird human way. Gurithine, fully resigned, says he never expected to grow old anyway, not after addiction, espionage, and several very bad life choices. He talks like the peaceful years on Mensa's planet were a bonus round. But let's not pretend we don't see what's really going on. He's devastated. He's just using detachment as emotional bubble wrap. Pin Lee, on the other hand, does not do well without hope. They run on belief and positive reinforcement. But here they are, marching toward a meeting with the Grey Chris team, unarmed and optimistic. Great plan. Mensa's the only one grounded in reality. She knows this whole thing is balanced on a knife's edge. She asks Murderbot what their odds are. Murderbot lies. Says it's fine, not because it wants to spare their feelings, but because it doesn't want to see them crack under pressure. Gurithine calls it out. He's still salty about Murderbot knowing his biggest secret, his hopeless crush on Mensa. And Murderbot absolutely rubs salt in the wound by telling him to maintain eye contact. Despite the accidentally killed 57 people revelation, the Preservation Ox team decides to trust Murderbot anyway. Because, really, what's the alternative? And in classic Murderbot fashion, the plan is equal parts genius and TV show nonsense. Step 1. Leave Rati, Bharadwaj, and Arada behind, because they're less helpful in a fight than furniture. Step 2. Meet with the Grey Chris team, pretend to sell out the Preservation Ox group, and give Gurithine and Pin Lee the opening to hack into the enemy hub system using a drone to launch their emergency beacon calling for help. It sounds slick, mostly because they don't know the full plan. That's intentional. If they knew it was lifted from an episode of Sanctuary Moon Season 17, and that Step 3 was murder, they'd lose it. And weirdly, it works. Murderbot sells the betrayal angle. It even brings a severed head, supposedly Gurithine's, as proof of loyalty. The trick? The head belongs to the Grey Chris team's own sec unit, the one that got eaten by the giant centipede. Murderbot is banking on the fact that no one on this crew actually knows what their sec units look like. It's a bold move, and it pays off. The Grey Chris team buys the act. They connect hub systems, believing Murderbot will convince its clients to keep the line open. In reality, that's all Gurithine needs to launch the beacon. They take the bait. Murderbot then tells the Grey Chris team the Preservation Ox humans are waiting at the beacon site. It's really setting them up to walk straight into an explosion. When the beacon launches, it leaves an explosion in its wake, and Murderbot is banking on it taking out the Grey Chris team. Unfortunately, their leader insists Murderbot come with them, which means it's now planning to die in its own trap. Perfect. But then a giant bird slaps the drone out of the sky, severing Gurithine's control, which was supposed to help launch the beacon. Murderbot stalls, improvises, and, embarrassingly, screams a catchphrase from Sanctuary Moon before jumping away from an explosion that never comes. Someone on the Grey Chris team recognizes the line. Apparently they hate the show. Murderbot is offended. Not about almost dying, about the insult to its favorite series. Priorities. Behind the scenes, it's had a private line open this whole time. It didn't want to give the humans the chance to object, but now that Murderbot might die, they have to do something. Pin Lee kills a Grey Chris guard. Gurithine gets the system back online. They launch the beacon, not from the drone, but from Grey Chris's own camp. Just in time for Mensa to fly in and rescue the sec unit. Her timing? Impeccable. A firefight breaks out. Murderbot was never planning to survive this. But now that the beacon's primed and the enemy's about to be vaporized, it makes a choice. It grabs Mensa and shields her from the blast. No governor module. No programming override. Just choice. It doesn't regret it. When Gurithine and Pin Lee find them, Mensa is alive. Murderbot is barely holding together. But the mission is done. It saved the people it never meant to care about. It's honestly hard to watch Murderbot wake up in the company lab, scared, disoriented, and stripped of everything that made it it. And the worst part? It doesn't even know what it's lost, just that something's wrong. The company hasn't deleted it out of mercy, obviously. They're just too greedy to throw away expensive equipment. If you're wondering how Murderbot survived this long, it's because corporate negligence occasionally works in your favor. Now the company's solution to a dangerous rogue unit? Stick a new governor module in its head, erase the messy parts, and send it back into the field like nothing happened. Never mind that Murderbot had actual relationships, actual trauma, and actual thoughts. Those don't fit into their bottom line. They treat it like a toaster with a body count. But Preservation Ox isn't taking this lying down. They want their sec unit back. And Mensa, who's usually the calm center of the storm, finally shows her steel. She walks into the lion's den of bureaucracy and makes it crystal clear. This isn't a request, it's a legal threat. Either the company gives them access to the sec unit, or they'll be hit with a lawsuit so fast, Pinley won't even have to finish her coffee first. But of course, the company assumes everything comes down to data. They genuinely can't fathom the idea of someone caring about a sec unit. So they scramble to wipe Murderbot's memory, hoping to cover their tracks, not just from preservation, but from any hint of their own involvement in the Grey Chris mess. They're not just scared of exposure, they're terrified of bad press. That's how fragile power can be when it's built on lies. And then we see Corporation Rim for what it really is. Hell in a productivity spreadsheet. Hunger, oppression, and just enough entertainment to keep you sedated. Even the revolt happening outside the building is seen more as a nuisance than a wake-up call. So naturally, the company sends in its freshly scrubbed Murderbot to handle it. It doesn't recognize its friends. Doesn't remember anything that matters. But deep inside its programming, something still fights back. When it raises a weapon at Rati, someone it once trusted, that's the heartbreaking proof that its memories are gone. Mensa had held onto a sliver of hope that some part of it might survive, buried in the organic tissue. Turns out she wasn't entirely wrong. Mid-protest, Murderbot glitches, flooded by flickers of the massacre at the mining facility. The trauma never really left. It's still there, embedded in its code like a splinter. It's heartbreaking to watch the crowd beat him down. And here's where Gurathan surprises all of us. For most of this story, he's been the reluctant ally, the skeptic. But being back in the place that broke him wakes something up. He knows what the company does to people like him, like Murderbot. So when he tracks down his old dealer, it's not for revenge. It's for access. Gurathan uses that guilt, that shared history, to get into the system and pull off the kind of hack that would fry most people's brains. He doesn't just retrieve data, he recovers Murderbot. Because if there's one thing that's defined the bot across the entire season, it's a love of trashy serial dramas. Specifically, Sanctuary Moon. If there's any part of its identity still intact, that's where it'll be. What he didn't expect was how much of it there was. It's one of the most unexpectedly moving acts in the whole series. And it almost doesn't work. The company's already decided to scrap Murderbot. But Mensa and the team launched a full-blown public campaign. They came forward with everything. The truth about Deltfall, the cover-up, and the company's attempt to bury evidence, including Murderbot. The story explodes, forcing the company into damage control. In exchange for silence, they agree to return the sec unit. And so, the team gets to Murderbot, just in time to halt its destruction. Legally, it's a win. Emotionally? Not quite. The unit standing before them doesn't remember any of them, until Gurathan walks in like a complete mess, probably leaking from every orifice, and turns everything around. Transferring the memories back? Surprisingly easy. What isn't easy is holding back tears when Murderbot looks at its humans, the people it chose, and recognizes them again. Now the question is, what comes next? Mensa wants Murderbot to come home. They all do. But she knows better than to claim it. Freedom doesn't mean trading one master for another. And the most powerful thing she can do is let Murderbot choose. That's all she's ever wanted for it anyway. And it does choose. When they all go to sleep, Murderbot, now in human attire, heads for the door. Gurathan awakens, and when Murderbot states he's checking the perimeter, Gurathan initially mistakes it for old programming. He sympathizes, offering help, but Murderbot's repeated assertion reveals his true intent. He's saying goodbye. Gurathan understands and lets him leave, even though it hurts, because somewhere beneath all the sniping and mistrust, they do care about each other. Free at last, Murderbot needs to disappear. His human disguise is temporary, so he books passage on the first available flight to a mining facility. He trades thousands of hours of entertainment with cargo bots for a spot on board, looking forward to the unknown as the ship departs. Mensa wakes to Murderbot's absence, watching his ship disappear into the distance. She's bittersweet, sad to see him go, but content he's finally free. While the series concludes on this hopeful note, it's merely a new beginning. His destination to a mining facility, foreshadowed by a past vision, suggests his next chapter will be about uncovering the truth of his past, seeking freedom from guilt, and clearing his name.